Okay. I have no idea if anybody's going to be listening or anybody's going to come, but I'm doing what I can. Oh, there is somebody here. Let's see. Can you hear me? I really don't know very well what I'm doing here.
Hi.
Ah, okay. So, you found the link okay, I take it. That's good. All right. Yeah, Aaron was supposed to give me, switch the password to his account over to me, and I don't know if I've got his account name wrong, or I wrote down the password wrong, or he just forgot to do it or something.
Okay.
But I wasn't able to access his account the way I was supposed to. So, but I so far it's working, and you're here.
Yes.
All right. Okay. What were you thinking of looking at as far as text today?
Gospel.
Ah, good. That's what I was looking at too.
Yeah, I don't have. It doesn't have to be mine. I mean, if somebody else comes in and says, "Hey, I'd like to do it," that's fine.
Okay. Well, give it another minute or two, and we'll see who shows up. And if not, then I'm preaching on the gospel too, so that works out well for me. Okay. So, Dave, where are you located? I don't have that. Okay. So, what kind of weather are you getting?
Well, we just had triple digits here a little while ago, and I think tomorrow it's going to cool down. It's only going to be in the 90s.
Ah. Yeah, we haven't gotten into the triple digits with the actual temperature, but the heat index has been putting it over 100 fairly regularly because the humidity is pretty high, but it's consistently in the 90s most of the last week and most of the next week ahead. So it's been keeping us warm. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing anybody else coming around quite yet. So I'm going to see how I can do with setting this up for a screen share for my Logos screen. All right, are you seeing that?
Yep.
Okay. And I just want to try to see if I can set things in such a way that if anybody tries coming by later, I can get their messages, but I'm not sure I have that set up. We'll just see what happens. Okay, Luke 12:13-21, correct?
Uh-huh. Rich fool.
Okay. All right, well, go ahead.
I told my wife I was preaching on the rich fool, and she's like, which one?
Yeah, I guess we have a few of those. Well, let's do verse by verse, and I guess I'll go ahead and get started. I am by no means the master of Logos as the way Aaron is, and I don't have all the resources that he has. I don't even have the bagged, but I do have some resources. But obviously, anything that you have that you want to bring in, please do.
Okay.
Verse 13. Aipen de tis ech tu oklu auto didaskala. Aipa to adalfo mu meresastai met emu tain kleronomian. And a certain one from the crowd said to him, Teacher, tell my brother to divide with me the inheritance. Now, do we know which crowd this is? I didn't really check the context there. Okay, beginning of verse 12, there were a crowd of many thousands, but we're not really told a whole lot as to when that was, I guess. All right.
Luke is often thematic, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure if I looked in Lenski or something like that, it would give us a better sense of, okay, this was during the feast of this or that or something, but we can save that for later.
Yeah.
He's called teacher, or the man calls Jesus teacher. Again, it's always hard to tell whether that's just a, kind of a generic term of respect or whether he's, putting some extra meaning into it when he is calling him that. It is kind of an interesting thing for him to be shouting out from the crowd, though, don't you think?
Cornering his brother, who might be in the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, that is an interesting aspect of things because on the one hand, if his brother is in the crowd, boy, is that putting his brother on the spot. On the other hand, if his brother is not there, then he's basically saying, Jesus, leave this crowd, come to my brother's house and give him a talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is, and it's not really something that we're told, is this a man who has been treated unjustly and he did not get his share of the inheritance that he should have received from his brother? Or is this a case where he is not happy with the division of the inheritance, and he's basically telling, or asking Jesus to weigh in and say, hey, you didn't divide things properly, you should do it right?
Yeah, I don't know.
In this case, it is a literal inheritance that we're dealing with, I'm sure.
So must be some kind of well-known and specific inheritance. You have the tain on there.
Mm-hmm.
The inheritance.
Yeah. I guess we would assume it was what he got, or they got from their father. But we don't know anything else about the man, so we don't know whether this was, how to divide 2 cows and a sheep, or whether this is, 2,000 acres of prime farmland and, flocks and herds abounding. Okay. No reason to understand brother as anything other than the literal brother, I assume.
Right.
And the term divide, I think some of the translations typically put that as share, but I think divide really is a necessary understanding here. So maybe I'm remembering wrong, but that's, I seem to recall seeing that as translated as share. All right. Anything else you want to discuss in that verse?
Okay. That's pretty simple.
All right.
Verse 14.
Mm-hmm.
Hada ipen auto anthropa. Tis me katestesan kritain. A meristain f mat. And he answered to him, man, or man,
Mm-hmm.
who made a judge, who made me a judge, a divider between over you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So nothing of note in that introductory phrase there. Probably nothing disrespectful or anything in calling him man. I mean, we assume Jesus didn't know the guy's name, so what else would he be calling him? It's probably,
You would know, but
well, in his humility.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's not the point.
Yeah.
Not the point.
Yeah. I like this word, kathistemi. I don't know how much significance it has theologically, but with the histemi as the root to stand, it's kind of like who stood me up as judge or divider. It's made is probably a really good translation of it, but to me, it's like, who took me out of the crowd and stood me up here and put me in the place of the judge here. It's got some strength to it. I think that the simple verb made doesn't communicate quite the same. But I'm noticing that most of the translations go with made rather than appointed or set. Okay. See much significance to the Greek grammar there, that it's judge or divider over you? Not among or anything like that?
I don't know. I guess I'd just say he is. I wonder if that other brother isn't in the audience.
Mm-hmm. It does kind of seem likely. I've never really considered that, but that seems to make sense.
It sounds like, it kind of sounds like he's being diplomatic here.
Mm-hmm.
Like the other brother is like, how dare you bring this up before the teacher? And Jesus says, kind of strikes one for the other team, for the other brother. So the other brother thinks, oh, he's going to take my side, and then all of a sudden, verse 15 comes along, and then he gets hammered that way. So,
yeah, I wonder if his use of these two terms, judge and divider or arbitrator, I wonder if there's another level of rebuke in there, in that here the man addressed him as teacher. Okay, this is your vocation, Jesus. You are a teacher. And Jesus, in his response, is, okay, you called me teacher, so why now are you saying somebody has set me up as a critic or an arbitrator, or as a judge or an arbitrator?
Yeah, kingdom of the left versus kingdom of the right.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to 15. Aipen de pros autus horata kai fulasista apopases pleonexias hati ento persoiain tini he zoe autu estin ekton hyparkonton auto. And he said to them, that's going to be an interesting question as to who that refers to. Look, take heed, watch out, and be on your guard from all greediness, or could even say every greediness, I suppose, because not in the abounding to someone, his life is from the things that he has, that he possesses. Now that's kind of awkward to put into English. Yeah, let's get back. So he says to them. Now, is the them going to be then the brothers, which would be the immediate context, or is it going to be the wider context? He's making a point now that this is a teachable moment to the entire crowd. Just noting that down in verse 16, again, it's just autus. So I guess the question then is this going to be something that he is addressing just to the brother or brothers, or is it something that really he's turning and addressing the entire crowd?
I would agree and say it with you and say it's both. Obviously, because the Holy Spirit has recorded it for us, so we know it isn't just for those two brothers now.
Yeah. Okay, so look out and be on your guard. Interesting there again, the combination of the two. It's not just look out.
Yeah.
But you also need to guard against this. Like the guy who has problems with pornography. Yeah, I look out for pornography on the internet all the time. It's everywhere. Everywhere I go, there it is. But you also need to be on your guard against it. So you don't just see it, but you actually take steps, to keep this from happening. And in this case, it's against greed. And it's interesting that he adds the passes there, all greed or every kind of greed, making clear that they're different kinds. And whereas you might think, oh, well, I'm not greedy for money, you may actually be greedy for land, or you may not be greedy towards lottery winnings, but you are greedy toward really nice clothing or something like that. So he says every kind of greed.
Present tense, continue. Don't just, you can't give up. Always.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. And double imperative also. Sometimes with those constructions, one's a participle, but it's double imperative, which I think certainly gives some punch to it.
Yeah.
Someday I ought to do a word study on this word parasoio. It's used in so many different places and ways, this abounding. And that's present tense too, isn't it? Yeah. So Jesus isn't just talking about the having accumulated things, but also in the current, sense of they are gathering now. What would we say he's referring to with the word life there, the Zoe? Clearly, it's not physical life. So what should we attach to that?
Then he's going to explain what he means by that in the next couple of verses.
Yeah, that's a really good answer to that. Yeah. Possessions.
That's a new concept.
Yeah. I wonder how much, the original Koine Greek listeners and readers, when they see this hyparkonton auto, whether they would have jumped immediately to the sense of, his possessions, which is the way it's usually translated, or if they would have been thinking of hyparko in the sense of be, in the sense of, so that they'd have the longer sense of those things which are to him. But I can't think of any exegetical value to that question, so maybe we should just move on. So, well, let's hear about the rich fool.
Ipende parabolain pros autus logon anthropoi tenas fusion oiphores sen exora. And he said parable to them, saying, a certain man, rich certain man. Hold on a second. The land of a rich certain man was plentiful. Something like that.
Yeah. Bore good crops or had a plentiful harvest or something like that. Okay. All right.
Okay. So I don't really have any.
Okay. Certain rich man, good crop, land. Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
One of the, I hope I don't sound like I'm speaking down to you. It's just I've done some study of parables recently, and one of the interesting characteristics of Jesus' parables is the way he very often starts them off with a situation that's just, it's almost completely unremarkable. It just draws people in. It's like, oh, okay, this is a situation we know. We can understand that. So it's just a certain rich man, his land produced a good harvest. Again, nothing there that really, shocks or, is going to, make people think things different. He's just drawing them into an everyday kind of situation. And verse 17. Kai dialogizito en auto legon ti poieso hoti uk echo pu sunaxo tus carpus mu. And he reasoned inside himself, with himself, saying, what shall I do? Because I do not know. My barns do not have, I do not have anywhere, place enough to gather in, for me to gather in my fruits, my crops. Again, nothing even objectionable at this point. It's
other than he's talking to himself rather than talking to God.
Yeah, yeah. But as far as the crowd, if Jesus had stopped right there, they would have said, "Well, that's the reasonable, rational thing to do." He's saying, "Okay, I don't have enough space, so what shall I do?" He's thinking rationally at this point, as far as anybody would have seen or understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but that's all I've got.
All right, 18. Kai pen tuta poiesa so kathalo mu tas apothe kas kai maizan nas oi kadameso kai sunaxo ekai panta tun satun kai ta agatha mui. And he said, this is what I will do. I will take down the storehouses of mine and I will build larger ones. And I will store there all the grain and my grain and my goods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you said, very simple. It's not shocking. Of course, rational. Of course, that's what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
What rational man wouldn't destroy their barns and build bigger ones when they have a big harvest? Doesn't that make, not a... He's got them. I mean, Jesus has got them. The punchline is coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but the only thing that somebody could maybe latch on to was like, oh, he's not just storing his grain; he's also going to store his goods. But when you think about it, he probably already had his goods in the barns, so it's just I got to make space for all my stuff. So,
or everything that his grain could buy for him.
Excuse me a second. Okay. Yeah. All right. Shall we go to 19?
Yep.
Okay. Kai ero te tsike mu tsike ekais pola agatha kaimena ais hete pola anapau faga pie oifrainu. And he's still talking to himself, and he says, and I will say to my soul, I always like that. You have many good things stored up for many years. Rest up, eat, drink, celebrate. That's where did the eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die come from? That's not from this, is it?
No, it's the Epicureans.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So he says to his soul, but I don't think I don't know that there's any real significance to that. That to me sounds like it's just Jesus saying he said to himself. Oh.
I don't know about that. I you can certainly can correct me, but it sounds like he is praying to himself, but he is his own God.
I'm not going to correct you because I mean that sounds like a reasonable approach there too.
Because you see the progression there. Okay, he's talking to himself, but now he has moved on. Now he's not just thinking to himself. Now he is going from a spiritual standpoint. Spiritually, this is all I need to worry about, is that everything I've got everything here on this earth. So spiritually, I'm set.
Yeah.
Where before it was just he's got a problem and he's gonna fix it. What do I do? What do I do? But now now I'm set for life, and now I don't need anything else because I've got it all here in my possessions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that seems to be a much more faithful way of rendering that. Yeah. Okay. And I guess interesting there, he's talking about celebrating, but being merry, as many of the translations have it. But there's no mention of praise to God, no mention of giving thanks. And that fits in with the sense of, okay, what's important to my TK? What's important to my soul? It's enjoying myself.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about how I think most of the illustrations that I've ever seen of the rich fool make him a fat man, kind of this Epicurean, picture of, he's somebody who really enjoys his eating and his drinking. But again, that's not in here. Okay.
That's an excellent point, because you think about the present tense, watch out, be careful. This guy could have been he could have been, like you say, he could have been a guy that was very fit, could have been a guy that wasn't lazy or anything. He could have been a very hardworking man, but now he suddenly sees his wealth has now become his God. His wealth has now become his provider instead of God being his provider.
Yeah.
So that the cliff you can hit the cliff rather quickly, catch you unaware.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Are you ready for verse 20?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not ready for verse 20, but here we go. Ipen de auto patheus afrom. Taute te nukti ti fuxen sui apai tuzen aposu ha de etoimasas tini estai. And God said to him, fool, this very night trying to think of where's the subject. It will be It's the third. There's.
Oh, it's Cain, right?
Cain, even though it's accusative.
Good question. Wait.
No, that's a plural. No, wait. You're.
Yeah, that's accusative.
They will demand back your life from you.
That is a grammatically strange construction.
And the things you prepared, whose will they be?
Yeah.
Who's someone else is going to get them?
Yeah. Now, one of the things I recalled reading is that this is the only one of the New Testament parables that God actually plays a role in, directly mentioned. Which is interesting.
Right, instead of God being like the father or something like that, he's actually a player in the story.
Okay, so strong word there. You fool, you ignorant person.
Let's see. Ignorance. Lacking good judgment.
Yeah. Oh, Aaron's listening in now. We got to be smart.
We saved all his questions for Aaron. If we had known.
I heard something about a strange construction before I switched over to trying to join the conversation.
Yeah.
Sadly, I can't stay either. I've got a client coming in a few minutes. But I thought I'd drop in to see what's going on.
Yeah.
We're on verse 20 of Luke 12.
Okay, I can, and I'm going to have to just read off your screen, Jeff, because
Okay.
I don't have Logos running on the computer right now. It's in business mode.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead. Carry on. I'll catch up.
So what were we? Okay. We had talked about that being a very strong term that God uses there. You fool. And this night. I noticed that I'm used to the NIV, which makes it this very night. The very really isn't in the text there at all. It just makes it stronger, I think.
Is it possible that I'm trying to run through it in my head? Is it that this is not the way they normally say this night? Do they just say night? No, that's not right. No, they say this night.
Huh. Yeah, unless there's something with the word order here, the way they put that in.
Yeah, it's fronted. Yeah, I suppose.
And there we have again that word Cain, which we had up here with the rich man saying, he said to, his soul, and so God's kind of throwing his words back at him there.
Yeah.
And
it's a dreadful thing to fall into the hands of the living God.
I never thought about this before. It's interesting that when there's a little bit of the doctrine of I'm forgetting it, anthropology in here, and the idea that man is made up of both body and soul. and here that there is this sense of separation. Your soul is different from the rest of you, and it's going to be demanded of you, unless, of course, you decide to take CK here just in the sense of life, which works in some contexts. But I think that with this context, since he's been referring to his soul, that we should probably stick with soul here.
Yeah, because he's not saying life.
Yeah.
Hey, life.
Yeah. Okay. And this question, will it be answered? Who's going to get your stuff? No, it won't be answered. Okay.
The rich man won't be answered. Well, so I don't know how far you want to take that. But then you go, okay, people who are in heaven or in hell have no idea what happens to them after they die, or what happens to their relatives after they die.
Yeah.
So they're not looking down from heaven, and their tears aren't streaming down, and all this, nonsense.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the point. The point is, all your stuff, which you thought was your God that it was going to provide for you, is now gone. Now it's somebody else's.
Mm-hmm.
All that hard work is now not even yours.
Yeah. As they say, you can't take it with you. It is interesting. Yeah, that's kind of right up your line, your new alley there, Aaron, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Always try to aim to have the last dollar spent on the day of your death.
Let's see. Okay, Aaron, do you want to take verse 21?
I can try. I can read it off your screen, okay? Doesn't look that hard.
Okay.
Hutos ha thesaurizon hauto kaime aistaon plunton. And thus, in this way, the one treasuring himself and not. Okay, this is the way it is for the one treasuring his own and not rich with God. I'm thinking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There
I was
is
just surprised that the aistaon instead of some sort of. I guess I would have expected a dative. No, I wouldn't. That's very specific to the construction because you got the dative.
Yeah.
Yep. Because it's not about God's not built in as a possession here. It's about your relationship. And ice has very much the idea of with in that construction. We would probably want seen there ourselves, but that's not the way Greek says it. I'm thinking of all of the sayings in John where Jesus talks about being with God and with the Son, and he always says ice. I can't run a search. I'm just staring at your screen, but but I'm quite sure on this.
And I'm sure if I tried running that search right now, we'd lose just about everything. So we'll just stick with this for now. But this is
when Jesus talks about the Son is with the Father, and why can't I come up with a specific quote? That there's quite a few real common passages that have that construction in it. It's not even toward God. It's not rich toward God. It's rich with God. It's about relationship, not direction or what the dative would normally say. A relationship. not just a grammatical relationship, but personal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the curious things about this verse is that there is no indicative verb in it. All we've got is participle here and participle here. So you really have to supply, probably usually a form of to be.
Yeah, I think the power is in the participle there, because the present active participle so strongly focuses on the characteristic of the person.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the way they are. Thus the way this person is versus the way this person is.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that Jesus never even says that this rich man's in hell. I mean, there's no real mention of the eternal aspect of things. It's just the as he tells the story, it's just that things aren't good if you don't take care of your relationship with God while you're here on earth. Beware, watch out.
Yeah. And nor is it about having riches, because
Right.
it's about having riches without being rich. It's got more to do with what you're treasuring than whether you're rich or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a powerful vocable as well. That treasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can remember looking up that a few times and being struck by what a powerful thought that is. The whole idea of where your heart is, that's where your treasure will be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, Jay. Sorry, my client just walked in.
Okay. Hi, Jay.
Enjoy. All right. I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay. Bye. All right. Okay. You think of anything else, Dave, that we...
No, we finished ahead of time. What's going on?
It's a shorter section. And pretty simple language, too. I mean, that's one of the nice things about this one. And again, part of Christ's purpose. It's pretty straightforward. This is one of those parables that doesn't require a whole lot of explanation to translate it to today's culture. I mean, even if people aren't farmers, they can get the idea of a harvest. They can get the idea of barns and only having so much space. There's not a whole lot of extra cultural explanation or anything that needs to go on here.
I think the only explanation is that farmers, they look at things differently than, say, a person working at McDonald's does, because they live paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
The farmer lives harvest to harvest.
Yeah.
So they're always thinking long term, and the person working at your Subway or maybe even working for your government job is always thinking about this is what I'm going to get this month, or.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not. I don't think it's a hard thing to understand either. I can see that's the only part where you might have to say something from the pulpit. Where this guy, it wasn't that this guy wasn't thinking long term. He was thinking long term.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that this guy was incapable of, that it was foolish for him to think that he could use all this one harvest to provide himself for the rest of his life. Because if he is a good farmer, he probably could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the foolish part was that he leaves God completely out of it.
Yeah. 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 Another characteristic of many of Christ's parables is, let me back that up and say it more simply. What we were talking about earlier with how this starts off as a perfectly normal, everyday kind of situation. People are drawn in. Say, oh, that's the rational thing to do. That's reasonable here. And then Jesus does what he often does with these parables. He pulls the rug out from under the listener. You know, in verse 20, he's like, and then God said, "You fool." I mean, it's, you know, if you were listening to that, you know, imagine somebody listening kind of on the edge of the crowd who's kind of, you know, almost in a conversation with his neighbor or something. And it's like, wait, what did he just say? And that's the way Jesus drove his point home with so many of these parables. You know, it's not just that it's a good illustration. It's the way he kind of, you know, pulls the dagger back and slides it between your ribs. You know, it really drives the point home. And that's, again, what he does here. It's like, yeah, that's a kind of, oh boy, I'd love to be in that situation. Ha, ha, ha. Wait a second. What did Jesus just say?
Yeah. And then the faithful, when they heard verse 19, they would go, okay, I know where he's going. I know, you know, it's a lead up to. But like, yeah, exactly like you said. People are like, oh, you know, verse 19 would be like, hey, I'd want to be that. You know, this is the guy I'd want to be. Or these two brothers probably were like, hey, that's what I want too. I want my share of the inheritance so that I can use it to provide for me for the future.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, in looking at the parable, I don't see a whole lot here that suggests that, yeah, this is directly in response to the brothers' situation. I mean, certainly it does apply in the sense of, hey, one or both of you is being greedy. You know, don't do that. But it seems more like this is just a teachable moment that Jesus is taking, you know, advantage of. I mean, somebody from the crowd spoke up, so that means that the crowd heard this, and so then Jesus is able to speak to the entire crowd and teach them a lesson about being rich toward God.
Exactly. And what is Jesus' mission here on earth? Who made me the judge and arbiter between you two? Why is he here? Why are we here as pastors? Why are we here as a church to proclaim the things about God? To proclaim the good news.
Yeah.
We're not there we're giving that as a church or as a group, we're not there for the here on earth, the social gospel.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't catch that back in verse 14. Jesus asked that question, "Who made me, you know, judge or arbitrator, you know, over you?" You know, that's a rhetorical question to which the answer is no one. You know, that goes back to, you know, the point you were making, which was that's not what I came for. Yes, I came to teach, but what I came for was something entirely different from settling your petty, you know, feuds and arguments and things like that. That's not what I'm about. And then, you know, that actually, perhaps even more than the talk about greediness, fits into the parable in the sense of, you know, what am I about? I'm about your eternal souls. What should you be about? Again, your eternal soul and your relationship to God. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay. Well, I'm sure there's a lot more we could milk from this, but I don't want to bore you either.
I'm not bored, but it's just a primer, isn't it? Or a refresher.
Yep.
Just to get us going and get the juices flowing. The rest of the week we'll be thinking about this and thinking it through.
Yep. All right. Well,
I do appreciate you taking the time to do it and filling in for Aaron's shoes there. It's really.
Yeah, I volunteered because I figure I need to learn how to do this. It's probably the future of a lot of my catechism instruction and stuff like that, and figured getting familiar with how Hangouts work would be a really good skill to add. So Just wish things had worked out with switching things over with Aaron, so there wouldn't have been the any confusion. But I don't think we lost anybody. If you found it, anybody else would have found it too. So, and I guess Aaron found it too when he tried joining in. So it worked.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and God's blessings to you.
Yeah, and to you. Keep cool.